pretty badly right there on the end of my finger. You can see that in one day, urine. Look at that. That was like gnarly, that one. See that one right there on the tip of my thumb? And so I'm telling you, this is an essential information that we're talking about here. It's hard to imagine not knowing this information. So, for example, you get cut up by barbed wire. First thing you do is you pee on it and get the urine on it, and you'll feel a nice little cleansing burn, and then it kind of cleans your skin off. For skin and hair, that's how I got into it, actually. The way I got into urine therapy was like in the early 1990s for my hair. I would put any kind of thing in my hair. What you name the shampoo, you name the conditioner, and it'd immediately go to dreadlocks instantly. And I couldn't ever use shampoo or conditioner. So somehow, I don't know, remember exactly what happened, but somehow it got to, I would have a cup in the shower, I'd pee in it, I'd put it on my head, scrub it in, at the end of the shower, wash it out, and that was my soap, shampoo / conditioner, and has been since the early 1990s. So roll around to the raw food days, going back into like, let's just say the mid 1990s, somewhere there was a book called Urotherapy by Martin Lara. He was a New Yorker from Brooklyn. By the way, thanks for that intro, Dr. Group. And he was a New Yorker from Brooklyn. And that's when I really started distributing and selling that book. And it was really had more in-depth information, like drinking the urine, aged urine, evolved urine, urine injections, urine enemas. What was in the urine, the hormones in the urine.
Hey, David.
Urine is basically your own best medicine. All that stuff was in that book, Urotherapy. That was my first book.
Let's get together, David. Let's do a podcast together.
With this one guy, my office called him Pisshead. And Pisshead, this guy was like, we have to open up urine hospitals. That's the thing. It's urine hospitals. This is where we're going. So he went berserk on urine hospitals. First time I ever heard that term, a urine hospital. Very well known in India. These teachings go back to where civilization began. It's pretty obvious at this point that civilization began in India. And so therefore they've had the most practice, they've had the most history with it. And it's hair like this. It's urine, 100%. I've been using urine in my hair since the early 1990s. How long is that? It's over 30 years, right? Or it's getting even longer than that. It's getting close to 40 years. And this is the power. So if you're like balding, you're worried about balding, you're worried about hair in your head, you're worried about skin problems, you're worried about eczema, psoriasis, urine. That's basic information. It's a basic strategy to have a cup in your shower. Make sure it's a cup that's not going to fall and shatter. I also have a neti pot in the shower too. Those two things are key. And then you can do the neti right there. So you pee into the neti thing, boom, one side, other side, and you're in the shower. So it just washes all down.
Perfect.
It's real easy to deal with it.
Yes.
Real good spot to treat your skin and your hair and to do the neti is in that shower, and it just washes right down.
Or in the bath.
Now, over the years, I eventually got into, now the way I was taught by Dr. Hitt, so back in about 2000, 2001, I started working with Dr. Hitt down in Tijuana, and we did urine injections. And so we would spin the urine up, and the heavier stuff would go down. And this is interesting. I found this to be a truism in my life. It's just something that keeps coming up repeatedly, is that the most homeopathic, the lightest particles in your urine or in whatever substance, if I go to a cannabis lab and I'm like, okay, what are you guys doing here? The stuff that has the smallest particle size is the most active. And we could just, nicotine has extremely small particle size. I've got to grow my own tobacco. There it is right there. And guess what? That'd be the most active. It's the smallest stuff. And typically it has like a colloidal suspension or a high electricity. So therefore it doesn't push to the bottom. You'd think when you centrifuge something, it's going to go to the bottom. Nope. Those particles, those colloidal suspended Brownian motion type compounds like nicotine or things that are in your urine, the homeopathic things in your urine, will go to the top. They'll instead of centrifugating, they centripetalize. They move up and in, and so we would pull that off with a syringe and then inject the person in the fat of their butt and get what's called a butyric acid response, and that's like a vaccine. That's the real vaccine. And my God, just the gong show of whatever that has happened to the human race with this injection nightmare, truly horrific and truly dystopian. But the solution is right there. And so we've been injecting people with their own urine for years. Now, what ended up happening is I started to get smart about this, because I'd be like, okay, if I go down to Tijuana and I go to the fruiteria, Hidalgo, that's where I would go. And I would go see my friend, what was his name? Geez, great guy. He was always cutting coconuts there. And I drink a bunch of coconuts, then go to Dr. Hitt's office, because I'm working with patients in Dr. Hitt's office, but I'm also like, I want to get a treatment too. So if I had to pee real bad from the coconut water, if you had like scintillating pee that would come out, for example, when you drink lots of coconut water, it's almost like champagne. Those of you who are urine drinkers would know what I'm saying, or those of you who have experimented would know exactly what I'm talking about, because your urine can actually get to a level where it's ennobled and it's like scintillating. It's like, we call them, when they come off a coconut tree and they have that property, we call them a champagne coconut, and your urine can get like that. And I would try to drink as many coconuts to get that. And you get injected with that stuff. That's the most powerful feeling of well-being that I can hardly, even remember in my life. I mean, that is like one of the greatest things of all time. Just want to throw that out there, because sure, you could do the urine enema, sure, you could drink it, sure, you could do the evolved urine. All those things are great, but that's another piece of it, is the injection, which has to go into the fatty tissue. So the top of the rump is a good spot for that to get, again, what's called a butyric acid response, a true vaccine response. Now, back in those days, back in the early 2000s, Martin Lahr's book, Urotherapy, and all of us were into it. I mean, we had a guy one time at one of our retreats. This was the best ever. He's doing the talk, and he's doing his whole talk on urine therapy. This is like the year 2000 or the year 2001. His name was Chris Hutnick, and he turns around, and he, right in front of the stage, everybody's out there, like 50 people in the room, maybe 60 people in the room. He turns around and he pees in a jar, and he turns back around and he drinks it. It was one of the greatest moments ever of all history. I mean, nobody that was there will ever forget that the rest of their lives. It's probably never happened on stage since, although I love what I hear from Dr. Goop and Troy, and I hope that they are able to incorporate that into future seminars in front of the crowd. Anyway, that's just my own little imagination running wild with me, but that is a thing that happened. One of the things that we learned about back then is that if you evolve your urine, so I have evolved urine jars from 2005 and 2007 that this is the Vedic system, that you always keep aged urine or evolved urine in jars just in case you're ever burned. If you're ever seriously burned, that's the treatment that you use, your own evolved urine. And the older that it is, the better that it is. That's how I learned it. That's why I did it. That's why I have 2 jars of my own evolved urine currently. I was also taught this, and this is the way I've been doing it, is you use your urine midstream. So you capture the urine midstream. Generally, the first few seconds, 3-4 seconds, the urine will be darker or have
all
some
sterile.
more fatty material in it or whatever. And I usually let that go, capture the midstream, and then that's really good for any dental problem. That needs to be mentioned. That has to be mentioned. You can gargle with that, swirl it around any dental problem, which is chronic in our society. Your urine is insane for that. Incredible, super important. Same with digestive problems, right? Because uric acid, not uric acid, it's urea. That's the word I'm looking for. Urea is the best thing for your skin. It's the best thing for your dental skin, your epithelial cells that line your mouth and all your esophagus and all the way down. So any kind of digestive upset, a history of digestive upset, urea, your own urine. It's crazy powerful, important, critical piece of information. You could use it. You could put it in your ears, in your eyes. You can put it in your hair, put it in your teeth, all those things. Now, I remember Justin Bua, my good friend Justin Bua. I sent him a message. I was like, hey, why aren't you on this summit? Maybe he is. I don't know. Troy's friends with Justin Bua too. And I remember that we had this one guy, we called him the fiendish Dr. Yash Paul. And this is the craziest thing. I was in an Uber on the way to Hawaii, actually, not this trip, but a couple months ago. And this guy who's my Uber driver is best friends with Dr. Yash Paul. And Boo would come up and he'd be like, bro, I'm like watching what's going on with the pee and stuff, but this Yash Paul guy, he looks like he has this kind of peed out look. He's kind of got this peed out, is it possible to drink too much of your pee or get peed out? And I was like, I don't know, bro. I mean, maybe it's possible. I would still recommend that, you have a good countenance and good look to yourself so that, if you're going to use urine therapy, maybe not have it on your breath. Maybe not, like I had a girlfriend, she'd soak her head in urine and then go to yoga class. Just like that. Didn't wash it out. And people would say to her, your hair smells great. They had no idea what was really going on. It was the best ever. I personally, now this house, this is it. We're in Hawaii here on the North Shore of Kauai. We're having a crazy amount of rain. And one of the things that happened here is in 2016, the plumbing blew out. So this was kind of a Ken Kesey type of setup. We had all the hippies living up behind the house. And I lived down up here in my room. There's a few people in the house. And we just basically tried to keep the hippies just living in the yard somewhere. We had like 15 cat encampments out there. But eventually they would come down and use the toilet. And eventually it blew the toilet out. And so we had to it took me years to figure out exactly what the problem was and exactly how to fix it. I'm kind of a cosmic plumber, but that got me into this habit, which is you poop in a coconut shell and you pee in a jug, and then the pee goes outside to a tree somewhere. And this is kind of what Troy was saying. Very important point. It's like, you want to be healthy. You need to look at yourself in the mirror and go, do I look healthy? Or you really need to give yourself an honest look in the toilet bowl and go, does that look healthy? And it's going to tell you a lot. When you're pooping in a coconut, it really tells you a lot, basically. You split the coconut in half. It's already been consumed, by the way. And then, you have a bunch of coconuts there in front of the coconut stand. You take one of those and then you close it up and send it out to the jungle. It became a thing for about a year until we finally fixed the plumbing problem. And the plumbing problem, by the way, was it was a cesspool, 20 feet by 8 foot diameter, 20 feet down, 8 foot diameter, right into the clay, and then a 10-foot lid, concrete lid was put on it, and the sewer came at an angle from the house just underneath the lip of that lid and into the middle of that giant cylinder, hollowed out cylinder, 8 feet diameter, 20 feet down. And what had happened was it had filled up. It had filled up with so much debris, too many hippies living here, that lifted the lid off underground, and it leaned back against the pipe and pinched it. And so it would still drain. The whole sewer, the whole house would drain, but it would take a while. We could not figure out where this was happening. Finally, I was like, we got to dig that thing out. And then